Welcome to episode 251 of In Touch with iOS, the show that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg, and my guests this week are starting off with Kelly Guimont. So glad to have you back on the show. How are you doing, Kelly?
I'm very happy to be here, as you could tell, because we all came in chuckling right now.
Yeah. Pre-show, having a bit of fun, but I'm so glad you're here. And another guest this week, and he just made it, and I really appreciate taking the time here this week, is Chuck Joyner. How you doing, Chuck?
I'm luscious, David. I'm luscious.
Oh, my
yes, you are.
Can confirm.
No, I am great. I'm so glad I was able to make it.
Yes, glad you are here. And he's even sporting a suit this week, so he made just for the occasion. And last but certainly not least, Jeff Gammon is here. Thanks for being here, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. And after the way everything started pre-show, I'm even more surprised that you invite me back every week.
Not at all. It's always a good thing because we always get some great laughs. But this week we got some new stories. It's been a bit of a thin week of stuff to talk about, but I always manage to come up with some things here, some good news stories. Beta was released this week. We're going to talk a little bit about CarPlay. Chuck's here. He just came back from NAB. I'd like to hear a little bit about what he experienced last week. And we might talk about a few other things that may not be involved with iPhone or iOS, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and get started. The first story I have this week is, I found this to be interesting. Microsoft's Phone Link app now available for iOS, so you can use iMessage from a PC. Microsoft is now rolling out an update to the Phone Link app that now includes iOS support, which it only never did before. It was only Android. And it now allows iPhone owners to connect to their Windows 11 PC and send and receive messages via iMessage, make and receive calls, and see their notifications on their PC or laptop. Microsoft had been previewing this for a while now, and I'm still not sure that think Microsoft is ever going to do anything good with this. There's going to be some severe limitations. I'll be honest, because you're going to be very limited to what you can do with iMessage, and it's very clunky, and there's a bunch of workarounds. But why would you even want to do this in the first place, right, Chuck? 'Cause it's Microsoft.
Yeah, well, I mean, the clunky and Microsoft, in the same sentence is not an unusual occurrence. Having said that, at least some, we've talked about this, I think, on all of our shows at one time or another, that, kind of why and how is this being done and how is it being supported officially, unofficially, or sort of somewhere in between. Hey, if it's really important to a PC user, at least this way they can be receiving iMessages. So if they want it bad enough and they want to deal with the restrictions or the limitations, great.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I think the most interesting thing about this is how long will it last?
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how long it lasts too, because it just doesn't make any sense that Microsoft's even going to be successful with this. I mean, they're late to the game in the mobile world as it is anyway. And they abandoned Windows Mobile, and then they were pretty much working Android for a long time. But it just interests me. I don't know. What do you think, Kelly?
Well, first of all, what color are the bubbles? That's the only thing anybody really cares about, and no one's into it.
Green.
So if they're green, then officially I'm gonna go out on a really sturdy limb and call it that this isn't news. However, that said, I know a lot of people who find a lot of utility in being able to have text messaging open in a corner of their Mac screen, and have it relay through their phone or whatever, because you can get the green messages even on your computer if your computer is a Mac. And there's a lot of utility in that. It can be really useful. It's a nice way to dash off a quick reply to somebody, if you need to. So if all it is doing is some sort of like magical handoff to be able to make it so that you can see your messages on your computer, like, first of all, I don't know exactly how magical that is. So it should have happened sooner. The thing I don't know is if you can do this with an Android device on Windows. That would also be, pretty useful, I think. Because like I said, there's a whole lot of opinions about the Mac and its future and all of that, but there's still a whole lot of people that have some kind of computer somewhere in their technological landscape, and those people could really benefit from something like this if they have some sort of mixed environment. So I would like to see it happen for everything, not just iPhones, and not just iPhones on, that are sitting next to a Mac where everything's signed into the same account or whatever. I would like to see it happen in all the places, because that is just a useful thing that honestly, I can't believe hasn't happened sooner. Like you were talking about Microsoft being late, but this is kind of everybody, because Android could be doing it. I don't know if you can do this if you have an Android device and a Chromebook. Like, I would like to see this happen for everybody, and it doesn't seem like it should be that complex. That's why like WhatsApp and things that have like the desktop component, I know a lot of people who've switched to stuff like that, and they've said that they've done so because I can have it on my computer too, and and I can see all my messages everywhere, and like having it be ubiquitous is the part that I can't understand why there hasn't been a big push to do something like that for all of them, so that everybody's mobile device and computer can work together.
I hope so. I want it to work together, but they seem resistant to it.
Everybody is, and I can't figure out if it's because technologically it's hard if you have to deal with other people's hardware or software, or if it's just nobody feels like it because nobody uses an actual computer anymore, or what the deal is. But I wish we knew how hard that actually was to make happen. If you know, please contact the show, because I legitimately am curious. I'm not trying to be facetious about this or anything. Like, I really don't know if it's a really complex technical problem, and Apple has solved it with, the same kind of stuff that allows handoff and all of that to work. It would be nice if you could do the same thing with all of your stuff and have all your stuff on all your stuff. Everything else's value prop is exactly that. Like, Dropbox is so you can have all your stuff on all your stuff, and OneDrive is so you can have all your work stuff on all your work stuff. And, the list goes on. And that's exactly how it seems like everything should work. And at this point, this is one of those things that when this came up, I'm like, wait a minute, why aren't we doing this already? Why wasn't this a news account from 2013 instead of 2023?
Yeah. What do you think, Jeff?
I love this. I think this is really smart, and this is really good, and I'm really glad Microsoft is doing this. And I think this plays really well into Microsoft's overall strategy, which is to be everywhere all the time. And if you know that you have people in personal settings and business settings that are relying on Apple's iMessage platform, then you need to be there. So it just makes sense that they would do this. As far as why didn't it happen sooner, my guess is that there's a key piece of information that none of us are privy to. And it has something to do with Microsoft waiting for someone at Apple to go, mm-hmm. And as soon as they got that subtle little nod, then they're like, okay, let's roll the code. And then as far as how difficult is this, I don't know. But I do know there are relay services that are out there that will bridge whatever chat platform thing you're doing with Apple's message platform. And it does involve a level of trust, because what you're doing is allowing your messages to live on another company's server. Mm-hmm. And so it's handling it's becoming basically a Rosetta Stone for your messaging. And as long as I said that, I'm just going to keep rolling. Why don't we have a unified app like we used to, where we can have all of the various chat services that we rely on in a single interface? Do you remember when iChat did that? Holy forking shirt balls. That was awesome.
Adium, may it rest in peace.
I know. I really, really miss Adium, because that was exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I've got another account. Let me just go to Adium and add it, and now I can talk to people. And there it is. And that was it. Yeah.
Maybe I'm stepping out of bounds here a little bit.
You probably are, but go ahead.
Odds are good. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Well, there are 2 points. First of all, Kelly, what an amazing coincidence when you ask, what color are the bubbles? That was the name of the dancer in Vegas a couple weeks ago. Other than that, okay. So seriously, though,
he's a really good dancer, by the way.
He is. He is. Yeah. He was at Magic Gardens here not that long ago.
Stole that from right out from under me, Jeff.
Hey, you just set it up. All I had to do is knock it out of the park.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But no, one thing we haven't talked about, though, is the differentiator that Apple has in Messages from the security standpoint. And so part of me says, okay, Microsoft has figured out a way to do this with or without Apple's help. I don't know. Definitely some limitations, but sort of like the question that was asked to Tim Cook, why should Apple give up what essentially is a competitive advantage, especially since Messages is such a popular platform? And so I don't, would it be nice? Yes, there's no question about it, but I'm not sure that Apple shouldn't be trying to leverage this just as a way to encourage more people to participate, because I can receive text messages, SMS messages just fine with Messages. But some of the other platforms, I can't.
Chuck, you inspired me to come up with a great idea. Okay. So you're right. Why should Apple give away or give up a competitive advantage that they have? And the answer is they shouldn't. Why not leverage that competitive advantage for other platforms? Let's say you're on Windows and you want to have end-to-end encrypted iMessage support. That's part of an iCloud subscription for Windows.
Oh.
Huh?
Okay.
Okay.
Jeff, this one it goes to a level of technicality that I don't possess. Does that potentially compromise the security of the message that I send to you or to Kelly or to David, because it's going through or ending up in a Windows platform? I don't know. But
on the Windows side, who knows? But the same thing could be said when the message lands on your Mac. If someone can get onto your Mac, they can get to the message.
Yeah. Like the technical feat there, I think, Jeff, if I'm picking up what you're putting down, and I'm trying real hard to pick up what you're putting down, the technical feat there would just be making sure that it's encrypted that your message is encrypted when it gets to Windows. If it's legitimately end to end, then yeah, I mean, I could see that totally being a thing that you could do. Because end-to-end encryption doesn't have anything to do with messages. End-to-end encryption is end-to-end encryption. Either you have it or you don't. It's, that piece I know, it's binary. Either it's all the way from one side to the other or it isn't, period. So it's possible that that's a thing. Well, you can't say it's end-to-end encrypted, Chuck, if there's a point where it's not. So
right, sorry.
Encrypted on a Windows device is the same thing as encrypted on a Mac. Either it's, like I said, it's either an encrypted message or it's not an encrypted message. That's all there is to it. There's two options. If you say it's end to end, it either is or it isn't. So if that's the case, then that would be a very interesting thing, because I don't remember if Signal and Telegram, which are end-to-end encrypted, I don't remember if they have desktop components or not, counterparts to the mobile messaging. But if they did, then it's not like it's not possible, because then if we were using one of those and I was on my Mac, then I could send an end-to-end encrypted message to you, and you receive it on your work PC, and mine is encrypted and yours is encrypted. Now, if you don't have a password on that computer and you leave it unlocked all the time, that doesn't mean somebody can't get access to all your goodies. But who's also a very good dancer, who is regularly at Devil's Point. That's another story. So the magic of it is just going to be whether or not you can have things be encrypted. And I know that there's full disk encryption available for Windows. So it's not like it's impossible to have a modicum of security around that kind of stuff. So the question is whether or not Microsoft's going to let Apple play in that sandbox. And quite honestly, the fact that Microsoft has an ounce of self-awareness and let this turn into a thing is, like Jeff was saying, is really impressive to me too, that they have finally realized maybe we're not the only game in town. And it turns out that the free world did not buy Windows phones before we pulled all of them off the market.
Well, there is a thing with Microsoft, the fact that they also have been allowing Apple to have updates to Apple Music and TV Preview. So they did release updates to the Apple Music and Apple TV app and the Apple Devices apps for PC users running Windows 11. And there's no Windows to show here, but I think this is important to talk about here because last year Microsoft said that Apple Music and Apple TV apps would be coming to the Microsoft Store in 2023, so it can be installed very easily on Windows devices, having a better experience using both Apple Music and Apple TV Plus. Instead of going to the web. Or even for the worst part of the matter is the Windows iTunes version is still way outdated and they still continue to update that, which I have no idea why. So they need to replace that. But so they hadn't really put any release notes of the latest updates. I did try it. I do run Windows 11 in a virtual machine in parallels and try it, and it seems like relatively solid. I think this update, I tried it and it's solid, but I think it's smart because now Apple's going to get an even bigger audience for both of their media consumption with music and TV. What do you think, Jeff? This is something I think like you're talking about. Microsoft is being smart and getting into this.
Yeah, of course it's smart. They're getting into this. It goes back to what I said earlier. Microsoft wants to be everywhere. And if you're going to be everywhere, you actually need to proactively go out and make sure that you're in all those places. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Chuck, what do you think?
Listen, from a Microsoft standpoint, yeah, it makes perfect sense. The only thing is that it's a subpar experience. And so, and I was looking at some of the limitations, one of which is group chats. And for my money, that's a major limitation. And I don't know, and you've run it, David, so you tell me, if we do a group chat between the four of us on the Windows machine, what happens to a message that goes to the group? Does it not get there, or does only, one message from the first participant in the group chat get there? I don't know how it works, but
yeah, bottom messages on it's hard to say.
Yeah, but bottom line, it's a subpar experience, and so
it still is.
Is it
with the messages? Yes.
Yeah. Now, will that improve? I have no idea. Microsoft would be foolish not to, if they can figure out a way to do it. But if you kind of think if they'd have figured out a way to do it, they would have done it in this release. So we shall see.
Yeah. Well, we will see. So let's move away from Microsoft. We've been talking way too much about them, honestly. Let's talk about Apple here. And Apple is soon to be letting users fix subscription billing issues directly within the apps. Hallelujah. Apple will soon make it possible for users to fix the App Store subscription payment issues in the apps rather than having to go to the device settings and make the necessary changes. Currently, if a third-party app has an issue with auto-renewing subscription, if the payment method is no longer valid, for example, user must exit out of the app and make the changes in the Apple ID section of the settings app. The system often forces users to take out the subscription and then subscribe again, which causes craziness. But I'm glad that they are finally starting to do some improvements, Kelly, because it always was a big pain with this. What do you think, Kelly?
It really has. And I was where'd it go? I was just looking at this. I was just looking at subscription management stuff recently because I was trying to review some of the subscriptions I have and make sure that I'm only paying for the stuff that I need to be paying for. Because that's a really nice thing to have. So it's been a giant pain in the neck, and I am much happier that there's going to be a better way to handle it. As a lot of things continue to turn toward a subscription in whatever amount of money and whatever billing interval they see fit. It's really nice to be able to not just have, to try to manage that and actually succeed, as opposed to, which seems to be the official answer from some of them. And it's kind of a pain because it's hard to track that down a lot of times. And, anytime I've ever had a problem like this and gone and looked for it, there's always a knowledge base article in their support section that's like, if it says, here's what you do, and here's some things that you can try, kind of, and it's sort of a crapshoot to try and do the thing that you're trying to do. And so I'm very glad that this is one of those tiny little updates that's going to make so many things better for so many people, that like all of the interactions, with subscriptions and stuff are going to be a lot smoother. And this is one of those tiny little things that I wish we would get on a more regular basis, finding those things and then filing off those edges, like used to be the thing that Apple was known for, was first of all, not having so many in the first place, but then also, not making it something that's easier. Like, we've discovered this is a problem and now we're going to fix it. And we found a really nice solution, and here it is. So.
Yeah. Do you guys any other thoughts on the subscriptions with this?
I didn't actually bother to read the article, and actually I blame Kelly, because she keeps sending links to other things that I'm compelled to click on. Is this something where developers will have to update their apps to take advantage of this feature? Or is this something that just happens now?
I think it just happens now, because it doesn't I don't see any mention of the discussion of the developer actually has to do something. But
assuming developers don't have to do anything, I'm super excited about this. If they do,
it says
then okay,
on the developer website I'm seeing it. Yeah, the developer's website has an actual memo talking about get ready to help your customers resolve billing issues without leaving your app.
Okay.
So yes, I think this is in conjunction with Apple and the developer to make this easy with the whole process, from what it looks like.
This just feels. Kelly said it really well. This just feels good. I mean, it's sort of a natural iteration. It's just a little bit of extra wax on the car. And so just keep finding those little things that reduce the friction.
Yep. Next story, emergency SOS via satellite saves students trapped in a Utah canyon. The iPhone 14's emergency SOS and via satellite feature last week saved a trio of students who went canyoneering in Utah and got stuck in an area with no cellular signal. As we know, this was introduced last September for iPhone 14 and the ability to be able to communicate when you get stuck. And there's a lot, I won't go through the whole story, but the students had some symptoms of hypothermia, and because of where they were, there was no cellular signal, so they were able to go outside, and about every 20 minutes, the satellite would line up to the location. They were able to text 911. And then when they were waiting for emergency services, they were able to leverage themselves out of the deep pool of using a rope, and they were able to get out. So it's good that this happened. I think it's another feather in the cap of Apple coming up with this and saving people's lives with this. And you don't hear about these stories too often from anybody else. Isn't this a good thing, Chuck?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I could be smart about it and say the lesson is, if you're going to go canyoneering, get yourself an Apple Watch Ultra. But beyond that, I mean, of course it is. It just demonstrates the benefits of an Apple Watch, and especially the Ultra, especially if you're going to engage in these kind of activities, that it's not just hype. It really does work.
Yeah, no, it does. And like they said, a helicopter crew from Salt Lake City arrived, as well as paramedics from Arizona, and they were all unharmed when they got there. So
nice.
Good news for all. Any other comments on that, the rest of you?
I'm glad to see it works like it should. It does what it says on the tin. We got in a place where there was no other reception, and we were still able to get help. So, I'm glad to have a report from the field, so to speak, that this is a thing that legitimately works for people, and I'm glad that it was easy to use and that it ended up being helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Next story, iPhone made up nearly half of the refurbished smartphone sales in 2022. Apple sales of refurbished iPhones saw double-digit growth in 2022, further solidifying its dominance in the global market for returned and repackaged smartphones. And this was according to Counterpoint Research. Their refurbished sales grew by 16%. It's a 49% share of the market last year, up from 44% in 2021. So that means they're almost half the market Apple's controlling here. And I've purchased refurbished in the past, and the other good thing is it does. Depending on who you buy it from, you can still get Apple Care on a lot of these iPhones. It's a win-win for everybody. Jeff, what do you think?
This statistic does not surprise me at all. The lifespan of an iPhone versus an Android phone is much longer. Therefore, by extension, the refurb market is probably going to be more robust because you will have more phones that are marketable for a longer period of time. So yeah, there you go. If you want to see Android phones have that much of a market share in the refurb market, then someone needs to make something that, well, actually they need to make the iPhone because it's the package deal. It's more than just the hardware. It's how long it's usable and how long you get software updates.
That's Android's usable for 2 years max, if that. Yeah. 3 years tops.
Yeah. Honestly, I was surprised to see the jump. I didn't expect the share to grow like that. Like I expected it was I sort of always ballparked it at about half the refurb market, just sort of mentally, like, because that's kind of what it seems like when I look at, different articles talking about like refurb phones and stuff. So this, maybe this is attributed to like everything being more expensive and a lot of people couldn't get,
I think that
were up for that, couldn't get a phone last fall, or whatever. So, but also I think part of what contributes to that is the number of them available, and what makes them available is the people who are leasing them and then turn them in after a year. And, there's still a lot of life in an iPhone 13, even right now, and if you go pick up a refurb 13 right now from somebody who got a new 14 in the fall, then, that's still a really good deal. And that's still a phone that's going to have 4 or 5 years worth of mileage on it. So I also like that this is keeping a bunch of stuff from going into landfills and all of that. I'm legally obligated to say stuff like that once every podcast because I live in Portland and we're all hippies, right? So I appreciate that this is another way for those phones to continue to be in service and have a longer usable lifespan.
Yep, absolutely. Any other thoughts about that?
I'm just going to throw in that if something happens to your phone, and you have to get a new phone, and let's say it lost or damaged or, something like that. And especially if you are, on the upgrade cycle or whatever, I'm not going to want to go, even if I'm not going to want a burner phone. I'm going to want an iPhone. If I need a stopgap phone, I'll go to a refurbished phone. It may not be quite as good a camera. It may not be quite as powerful as the current one, but the odds are that it'll be just fine as a stopgap phone
for now.
And let's not forget that there are plenty of, the 13 was great until the 14 came out. The 12 was great until the 13 came out. They're great phones, but they're also great cameras. And so if you, instead of buying, some kind of video camera, if you decide you need a secondary or maybe just a dedicated camera, those are phenomenal cameras. And let's not forget, I'm not sure, Kelly, I'm not sure about you. I know David is. I know I am. We're both running camo. So our phones are our webcams. And they're so much better. I'm sorry, webcam people, but they're so much better than anything else I've seen out there, including the DSLR I used to use. And so, it's like there's so many different uses for these phones. And they're not the use case, unlike iMessage on Windows, the use case is not compromised.
Not at all.
So it just, instead of looking at this as just a phone, we're back to that discussion. This is so much more than a phone. And when you look at these things, it's a refurbished phone. That's the way they categorize the market. But I think there are a lot of devices being bought for a lot of other reasons.
They're absolutely not all. 100% of that 50% is absolutely not being used as telephone pocket communicators. That's so not happening. They're becoming video cameras, like alternate takes. Friend of the show, Brittany Smith, I've seen her set up for her YouTube recordings and stuff. And she has this like armada of like iPhone 7s that have no cards in them. They just sit on the Wi-Fi, and she's got, like remote setup and stuff for them to use them exclusively as cameras. I know someone who has like I think it's a 7 or an 8 that's a document scanner. Like I have to scan a lot of documents. And so I have this whole setup, with the tripod and the thing in the place with the little outline and just, crank them out. People like iPods, you can't really get an iPod anymore. So if you get one of these that has Wi-Fi access, 128 gigabytes, that's a sweet way to play music if you don't have another option for it. So there are a whole lot of ways that you can do something with an iPhone that does not include making phone calls.
Well, and how many of us have seen people pushing around children in strollers with a little iPhone propped up right in front of them? And you're not going to use an iPhone 14 for that. You're going to get something cheap so that when the kid reaches up and grabs it and throws it across the room, that you're not yourself crying.
That was my first takeaway from that Utah, from the canyoneering story. I even said it in the chat, not to be confused with Canyonero, and then I did it.
And there it is.
And there it is.
There you go.
Yeah, 12 yards long and 2 lanes wide. Who lets their high schooler loose with an iPhone 14? Like that was my primary question about that entire article.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they had it, but come on. Anyway.
If anybody else, unless you have any other thoughts on this, I want to move on and get a couple more stories I want to get to before we go on to topics. Quickly, Apple Cards, another reason why it pays to have the Apple Card. There's a promo for offering 5% cash back on grocery store purchases. The one caveat is it's only being certain people are being invited to it. I did not get invited to it. There is even an update in the story saying that then they might be even offering something like 10% to some. But I haven't seen this yet, so I don't know if you guys have gotten any emails.
How do you know you got invited?
If you have Apple Cards, you get an email.
Oh,
they'll tell you. Just like we'll talk about pay later in a minute here. So keep an eye out on that. We already know all the great rewards for you're getting the 3% back on Walgreens and Panera and a lot of other stores and places to eat. So keep an eye out for your email, see if you get anything on that. And then the last story here real quick I want to talk about is YouTube Music is now gaining audio podcasts on iOS and the web. Google announced this actually today as we record this, that YouTube Music on the web and the Music app on iOS devices will now offer podcasts in the United States. So users who watch podcasts through the main YouTube app can now continue to listen to them through YouTube Music. As we noted, podcasts on YouTube are free with no premium subscription required, and they're available on demand and on offline. There's an Explore feature. So it looks like Google is looking to expand podcasts in YouTube Music, and who knows what's going to happen to the Google Podcasts app or the Google Podcasts, where you can be listed there and find podcasts. So this is definitely interesting where YouTube is going, Google, with this. Anybody have any comments on that?
Yep.
Yes.
Why did it take them so long to do this?
I know. Exactly.
YouTube isn't a place or is not being positioned as a place where you go and watch a video. YouTube is being positioned as a platform. It's where you go and stay. Right. Therefore, if you want people to stay, give them everything that they would otherwise leave for, which means give them full, easy access to all the podcast content that they would otherwise be getting somewhere else. Yep. They should have done this a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing audio on YouTube for forever. And, you have the option to listen to it using your YouTube app to listen to our podcast here. But I know a lot of others do that. And I'm not the only one, as well as video podcasts too. Mm-hmm. Why not make it easier to find things? It's like another place that us podcasters like to have to be able to put our content out there.
It's been how many years ago that we've discovered that YouTube was the second biggest search engine in the world?
And then it turned into the biggest search engine at some point. Yeah.
It does. Because
and I mean, and that was YouTube, way before anybody was doing stuff like, I'm just going to paste my cover art there and share all my podcasts on YouTube, or do like this and, live stream it on YouTube and leave it there for people who want to listen to that. and watch us make faces at each other as we try to crack each other up in Zoom chat or something. But there's I can't, again, yeah, why did this take so long? That seems to be the overall theme for today's show.
It's probably, and this is a serious comment, it's probably someone at a high level who just is thinking in a very linear fashion that YouTube is video. And okay, we swung the needle a little bit. Now YouTube may be streaming video from the networks, or streaming video from some of the streaming services with YouTube TV. And they're just getting around to swinging the needle far enough over to say, you know what, maybe we should get into audio too. Now, you can come back at me and say, well, what about, the music on YouTube? And you're absolutely right. But podcasts have always been this weird little thing in between that folks are just figuring out what exactly they are. In fact, I know one company that claims they are producing a podcast, and it is a video on Vimeo. That's it.
That would be the opposite.
Yeah, that's not a podcast.
That's not a podcast.
But
in any definition.
Right, but to their way of thinking, it's low production, limited audience, very narrow focus. Therefore, it's a podcast.
No,
that is literally not the definition of a podcast.
I do not think it means what you think it means.
Yes, right. Exactly. But at the same time, I kind of take it as a good thing in some ways, because sooner or later somebody's going to say, excuse me, that's not quite right. That's a little video show that you're producing, for a limited audience. But if you really want it to be a podcast, here are the 2 or 3 things that you need to do, and then it can be a real podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go into the topics for this week. Beta, iOS 16.5 Beta 3 was released this week as we record. Not really much to report. Still has basically the same updates that we've been talking about the last few weeks. I've got this feeling this is probably going to be near final unless they have a .6 version for iOS and iPadOS. WatchOS 9.5 is out. That's Beta 3 as well as tvOS. A few you do dabble in beta. I just installed it on this iPhone and on the iPad. I haven't really noticed much difference in the last couple betas. Have you seen anything, Jeff?
My schedule's been so wonky that I am not kidding you. Yep. The new update finished installing as I was connecting into the podcast tonight. So what I can tell you is that my sacrificial iPad was not sacrificed. It appears to be a functional device.
That's good. Any other comments on that? I don't know if you're running the beta, Kelly.
I'm not at this time. I usually have something that's running something. Right now, I don't have anything that's on beta right now. I haven't updated to the 16.5. I usually, my personal interest tails off a lot after we get the e-release, or whatever it's called, the spring release, right, which in this case is 0.4. So because after that, it's just sort of we found something kind of serious, or we've finished some tiny little thing to clear the decks for Dub, and so there's usually nothing very exciting that comes out after that e-release. So I don't usually care that much after that.
Okay.
Till we get the first digit upgrade, for the next one. So.
Yep. Let's hope it'll be out soon here. All right. So next story I want to talk about. We did cover the new Apple Savings account that came out last week in episode 250. But I wanted to also talk about it because this we found out about this a little later. Even though this press release, which was interesting, was dated March 28th, we're on April 27th here, so it's apparently it was announced a few weeks ago, but only, I guess, certain people got invitations, because we talked about as Mac Voices that the fact that some of us got invitations, I was able to sign it up for it, but a few others were not. But what it is that it is Apple Pay Later. It's designed for financial health in mind. So it allows you to be able to split purchases into 4 main payments from $50 all the way up to $1,000 without taking any hit on your credit. You just set it up right in the app, and it gets approved pretty much immediately. I mean, like I said, they aren't checking your credit, but I think they have knowledge of your credit worthiness. But I did sign up for it, and I did get an invitation, and it showed up right in the wall of apps as Apple Pay later. And you just sign up for it. Within about a minute, I had it all set up, and I put the max in $1,000, and so okay, you got this ready. So you were able to purchase an Apple product and pay 4 equal payments to it. Some people like to do like this instead of applying for a loan or taking a hit on your credit. And some people just like, okay, I don't need this because I've got an Apple Card as well, which I can do payments, which I've done on many products in the past. I think still have an iPhone I'm paying off. So it's definitely something that I think Apple's smart in. We also found out that it is set up as an Apple Financial LLC, and it's not completely conjunctured with Goldman Sachs, who backs up the Apple Card. So it's gonna be interesting to see where this goes. Anybody have any comments about that?
Apple wants in financial services. They're coming in from a variety of different angles.
No,
absolutely.
So we've seen a lot of pay later. There's the one that starts with a K that you see on everything. That's like, this is $8.99, but you could pay $2 a month for 4 months or whatever with the thing that starts with a K, right? But the thing that wasn't clear to me on this is what you do with it. Like, is it for anything where you use Apple Pay, or is it? And then like once you set it up, is it like I'm gonna go use Apple Pay and buy new stuff from Nomad because they're having a sale right now, and when I go to hit the Apple Pay button, it goes, do you want to pay this all at once, or do you want to break it out? Like the thing I wasn't sure about with this honestly was the mechanics of it. Like what can I buy and break out monthly over it, and what the process looks like if you do that. So all they've said now is that it's a thing, and I'm like, okay, tell me about the thing, and like it's a thing, and that's like all I've gotten so far.
Yeah, it hasn't mentioned. It just says you can purchase. I don't know if you can buy something other than an Apple product. I'm thinking it is an Apple product, but you're right. It's not very clear
because it doesn't say like for Apple products. That. Yeah, and you don't.
I didn't either.
You don't. It doesn't say. It's built into Wallet, so you can buy all your Apple stuff on monthly installments or anything like that. So that was the thing I was wondering about. Is it, if I go shop at Nomad, if I go shop at some other place, or if I'm out and about and I want to go drop a bunch of money on something, and they take Apple Pay, can I chunk it out that way? Like they didn't. That part isn't clear. So I'm looking forward to the reports of people who actually have it saying, here, I bought a thing and I made it 2 payments so that I could just see how it would work. And, here's what happened.
Yep, absolutely.
It sounds really weird to go, okay, so it's Apple Pay. Like, can you, it's a thing from Apple so you can buy stuff, but like, what do you do? And like, there's no more information in it than you can buy stuff.
Yep. All right. We can move on here. We're going to, before I move on, make sure everybody knows that we have do a live chat at youtube.com/in touch with iOS. Want to give a shout out to Guy Searle. Get well soon. We miss you, buddy. I know you're having some health issues going on, but we're glad you're here and talking to us, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show soon. Chuck, you brought this up pre-show, and I wanted to actually address it a little bit here. We did talk about the Apple Savings account last week, and it's a great experience. You get 4.15 APY on the interest rate, and but you had a bit of a challenge, you're saying, with bank accounts, right?
Yeah. So let me take you through it very quickly, because when it works, it's fine, but I'm not sure what's going on. So I have an Apple Card, right? And I have to pay off my Apple Card, so I have it connected to my bank account. Signed up, obviously I have money going into Apple Cash, and I've just let it accumulate there for a while. So when the savings account came along, it's like, great. So I've put my Apple Cash into the savings account, no problem. But then I wanted to transfer some money from my bank account over. And what happened, I looked at the account number that I would be transferring. Let's see, I'm saying this. Yes, I said that. No, I said it wrong. I wanted to send my Apple Cash to my bank account. The bank account number that was listed in Apple Cash was not the same bank account that I used to pay off my Apple Card. In fact, it's a number that I did not recognize at all. I called Apple. They couldn't tell me A, where it came from, or B, and by the way, the bank name listed was correct. It was just the account number that didn't look right. The routing number was correct. The account number was not right. I called my bank and they said, not only do you not have an account with that number, you've never had an account with that number. It's like, yeah, well, that's what I thought, but I wanted to check with you guys. So went back to Apple and they said, okay, just delete the account, put your correct bank information in, and then you can transfer back and forth. I did that. Yeah. And then I took money from my bank account and moved it over to Apple Cash. It moved over fine, just great. So today I went in to move more money from my bank over to Apple Cash, I'm saying that wrong, to Apple Savings. And I got a note saying, you can't do this. The bank account information is completely gone. And it said, you need to have a debit card to move money over.
That makes no sense.
Well, I don't know. I mean, so the transfer from the bank back over to the Apple Savings account worked once, but why isn't it working again? And I can't even find the option that was there to add my correct bank account information. So I don't know if any of you have had any experience like this, because it's not a big deal, and I know that things are new here. So I'm going to give them a call and see what the deal is. But maybe someone here has had some experience.
I have. I just checked all my bank accounts, and all the bank accounts are set, and I've tried each one of them, and I was able to transfer there to and from them without a problem.
Chuck,
but they don't need. I don't have a debit card, so go ahead, Chad. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a hypothesis, Chuck. Go into your Apple Pay Cash settings or your Apple Pay settings. Right. Make sure you have a debit card there assigned to Apple Pay Cash, and see if that fixes the problem. Because if you're doing Apple Pay Cash, you have to do it with a debit card.
Yeah.
So maybe there's some stupid bug in their system where it's not recognizing the debit card attached to Apple Pay Cash. And so it's just not working.
Okay. I can't do it because my phone is being used as my camera right now, but I will check that. Yeah. That's a really good thought, Jeff. That's a really good thought.
That is good. I didn't even think of that. Yeah. Cause right. You have to have a debit card linked to the cash card or the savings account. You shouldn't have to.
Good point.
Yeah. So, I can't remember. Yeah, I was wondering if maybe the reason that your bank number was funny was because like it was using the debit card, because it's always a fake credit card number when you're
right.
When you're doing that. So that's what I was wondering, is if maybe it was picking up bad info from that instead somehow. But
Kelly, that's an interesting point. But if that were the case, you know what? You may have something there. No. Because it was showing,
it could still be a bug that it's showing you the wrong information in the wrong spot, because a routing number is different from an account number. And so maybe it was showing, the wrong thing. That was the only thing I was thinking of, is that maybe it's just picking up like the Apple Pay card number when that's not really a card number. You know what I mean? So that was why I was wondering.
No, that's a real good thought. I mean, it's a bug, not a feature. Or it's a feature, not a bug. So yeah.
It's from a certain point of view.
Yeah. Other than that, the money moved over in a timely fashion, going both directions, and it's been fine. So there's just these couple weird little hiccups that I just want to make sure. And when you're talking about debit cards, that's always something that you get a little touchy about, because theoretically you're opening up your entire bank balance to something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try not to use debit cards these days.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So let me I want to move on to a different topic here. been a couple stories here. Apple actually responded to the CarPlay and GM, which we've had plenty of discussion about here. And what did Apple do? They just said, "Here, we have over 800 cars that actually have models to choose from, and it's easier than ever to find a vehicle that works with CarPlay." So that was their way of going back and saying, "Hey, this is not a problem here," and they have a whole long list of all kinds of cars that actually have it available. So I thought found that to be interesting. I know, Jeff, you had thoughts about this. And,
oh man,
do you like Apple's response on this? That's I guess my question.
I think Apple's response, when you parse it all out, without having to put you in a position where you have to edit, Apple's basically saying fork those guys. and I'm okay with that, because the whole thing GM is doing, I know this comes as a shock to you that I have an opinion on this. GM is taking a very myopic approach towards increasing their bottom line at the expense of their customers, and the customers where it actually matters, they will not stay. I thought of another thing about this the other day. Okay, so let's say you're like, screw it, I don't need CarPlay. I'm going to go ahead and get GM's car dumpster, whatever they're going to call their thing, dumpster play. That's it, dumpster play.
Yeah.
And so you set it all up. It has all of your data in there, and then someone steals your car. Now they've got all your data.
Yep.
Yes, they do.
Fork those guys.
So take a look. I put a couple links to articles, as well as Apple's great list of every available model that has CarPlay. And you have over 800 to choose from.
Here's the two things here that I think are really interesting. First of all, is GM saying, why should we use CarPlay? Why should we let people have our CarPlay for free when we could be charging money for that sort of thing? First of all, I have some choice selections from Roy Kent's vocabulary for how well that's ever gone for anyone in the history of automobiles. And to think that you couldn't pay me to use most of those systems, and now you want me to pay you for... No, sweetie, no.
Yeah,
that's not how any of this works. Bless your heart. Lord love you for trying, which is another one I like a lot. And the reason that I'm even more confused by this is because Apple now also does the car key with your phone, where you go up and bonk the thing on the thing, and now your car's unlocked. And if you're gonna, aside from like wireless CarPlay, which is even better, and now not only can you play all the music off your phone and, take a conference call while you're driving to Voodoo Donut or whatever, you can also use it to unlock your car. And that's just going to be even better. And like, I'm certain that there's going to be an Android version of this at some point in the future. Like Google I/O is breathing down our necks, so it's entirely possible we will see something like that this year from them. And so when I can take my phone and unlock my car and make it more fun to drive with my own personal soundtrack. I have several playlists for driving. It depends where I'm driving. It depends if it's sunny or not. It's a whole thing I've completely overthought. You're welcome. This is a huge, huge thing that I cannot believe GM is just forsaking, because they want a tiny bit more money for the car that, we think we can monetize people even more. And I know it's a snarky thing to say on the internet, in this economy, but seriously, in this economy, you think you're going to get people to A, buy a new gas-powered automobile, B, not be able to hook their phone up to it, and C, you're then also going to charge them additional money for stuff that they could literally be getting for free from someone else who's also going to give them more features like, oh yeah, and your phone can unlock your car for you. Like, what's the next huge press release we're going to see from GM? We've got tires now that are square. What?
The bike with the square tires?
Oh.
I'll just stop because I'll take us down another rabbit hole.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Go ahead, this may surprise you. I would be a lot less critical of GM if they said they were going to offer CarPlay and require a subscription to it. But to just say, no, you're going to take what we like and shove it down our throats. No, no. I mean, and again, depending on who you are and what you do, the entertainment system of your vehicle may not be a significant part of your buying decision. I think it is, because I spend a lot of time in the car, and the experience with CarPlay is superior to anything that I've seen.
The first time you use a car where you've chosen poorly for that system, it becomes a huge deal. If you are a person who doesn't care now, it's because you never had a car where you connected your phone to Bluetooth, and every time you got a new phone, it hated you in a different way. Or you tried to use some other sort of system and it failed you, and you tried to do whatever Ford's nonsense was with BlackBerry that they put in cars for like 20 minutes a few years ago, and the entire thing was just a dumpster fire. Or security that happened. Like there's security updates that end up, you have to take your car into the dealership. They have to like update the software in your car. Like if you've ever had one of those experiences, then the first thing you are looking at is which trim package gives me CarPlay or gives me Android Auto, which is also not a terrible experience. And you don't have to go through all the gyration of all that stuff. Recently, I was on a trip and the car that we rented had CarPlay in it, which means I was renting and I didn't have to do anything. All I did was plug in my phone. Yep. And when I said I needed maps to the place, it was on the screen. She talked to me, and that was it. That was all I had to do. I didn't have to sit there in the parking lot when I picked up the rental car and do the Bluetooth dance and all the things. No, I just plugged in a cable and moved on with my life. And if I'd had a car, if I'd rented, the next income bracket up, I probably could have got a wireless one where I just set my phone down and could do the same thing. But the fact remains, there was nothing. I didn't have to do anything in order to make that work, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right, I want to hit two pieces here on this, and the first one is we don't know if GM is going to require a subscription to their own dumpster play. So and I am adopting that, Jeff. I love that.
Delightful.
Feel free.
So, okay. And if they are going to do that, then why wouldn't they offer CarPlay for the same price? And just, other than the fact that Apple might argue with them and want to take 30%. But shift it around and say, let's just assume for a second that dumpster play comes free. And then, Jeff, your point about, somebody steals a car, they've got all your information. How much is my information worth to GM that they would risk alienating people who have the most popular phone out there?
Well, from their perspective, they are not alienating. They're offering you a new and better choice. Well, not even choice, but a new and better platform. And
prove it to me. And look, I'm not opposed to the possibility. It just seems very unlikely given everything that every car manufacturer has done up to this point.
Oh, I agree completely.
I agree.
Yeah. Same. I mean, dumpster play is I think it's aptly named.
The fact that it's not a trim level option is the part that baffles me. Like if you want the unbelievably expensive trim package with the rust undercoating and the Harman Kardon speakers or the Bowers and Wilkins speakers or whatever and on, if you want that one that like doubles the price of the car, maybe you can get CarPlay that way. But to take away the choice is the part that I find the most baffling. You can
it's not baffling at all.
Well,
yeah.
As a thinking person, Jeff, I disagree. As an auto executive, Fair. I couldn't tell you because that's not the seat I sit in.
Okay, so yes, absolutely valid. I mean, the thing is, if you give people a choice, they're ultimately going to choose the thing that they're not having to pay extra for, works reliably, and they already are familiar with it, versus the thing that's going to be hobbled unless you pay subscriptions. And even when you're paying all this extra money, you're going to be getting an inferior experience. Why would people go for that? Well, if it's the only option, they're more likely to go for that.
Yeah.
Jeff, I agree with you. But, look, I want to be fair to GM, or as fair as we can be, given how stupid they're being. But, we don't know exactly what they're, they've alluded to the fact that they're not taking advantage of subscription opportunities. So
they made it very clear that they see
exactly
subscription as the future for this.
Oh, okay. Then I read a different article. So if that's the case, then just give me what I want. And if you charge me for it and I really love your car, then okay, at least I'll suck it up and buy it. Yeah. Because in the grand scheme of things, 3, 4, 5, 6 years of CarPlay at any kind of reasonable subscription rate is not a big chunk of my car purchase.
And I'd pay it.
Yes, exactly. But instead, so if you're trying to tell me you're going to monetize Dumpster Play, and I didn't want it in the first place. Nah.
Yeah.
Right. Or
we're going to give it to you, and we're going to charge you for it on a recurring basis.
And you're going to have my information that I may or may not be anxious to give you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the key right there.
And we already know
on top of
we already know how on top of security car manufacturers are.
Good point. Yeah.
One of my favorite stories to back that up is the reporter that wrote the whole thing about how he let hackers remotely take over his Jeep from halfway across the country, and it freaked the crap out of him because all of a sudden he had no control over the car.
Yep.
Holy crap. And car manufacturers are okay with stuff like this. So
Yeah.
Well, and
that's a whole nother story.
I'm curious, does anybody here, this is a sidebar, but does anybody use any of the plug-in devices from their insurance companies to reduce their rates?
No.
I would switch companies. If my insurance provider said you need to plug this into your car for a better rate, I would be gone. I would cancel my policy that day.
Same.
My agent asked, and I told him, "Do you want to save some money? You can do." No, thanks.
There's no way. First of all, there's no way I can save any money. I don't go anywhere. I cannot stress this enough.
That too.
And I agree with that, even though I work in the industry.
As well as I do.
For me, I don't see the discount that I would get on my car insurance as worth giving up that information. When I drive, where I drive, how I drive, how many people are in the car with me, et cetera, et cetera. So, give me a 50%, 60, 70, 80%. Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I wouldn't even do it for that. As soon as they ask me to plug a thing into the car, or if they require it, nope, I'm out.
Nope.
Done. They could say, Jeff, we will give you free insurance. All you have to do is plug this into your car. I will go somewhere else where I pay for insurance and don't plug the thing into the car. That's how militant my stance is on this.
I have something free for you too.
That's interesting, Jeff. I've not heard anybody state it quite that strongly.
I would never. I will never. You can offer, and as long as I'm given the option to politely decline, I will continue to pay you. And as soon as you tell me it is no longer an option, then you are no longer my insurance company at the end. I won't. I'm well, Jeff apparently too. I think I can speak for my fellow weirdo here. I'm the weirdo that goes, what are you doing with my data if I give it to you? What exactly are you asking for? And what are you going to do with it if I give it to you?
Right.
And I don't think either of those are unreasonable questions, but I find that the answer to me, and I don't care most of the time, but to me, the answer a lot of times is really not an acceptable answer. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a reason I'm not on TikTok. There's a reason I really wasn't on Snapchat, because for the same kinds of reasons. And it's something that a lot of people don't care about until they care. And I guess I just hit that point a lot sooner than a lot of people. And so I want to know, what are you doing with the information that I give you? And like I cheered for ages about the privacy label stuff that they do on the App Store, because a camera app shouldn't need access to my contacts. And you should have to tell me up front that that's what you want. And, a barcode scanner shouldn't need my location, things like that. And making those things clear up front, it's an informed decision. You can still decide whatever you want to. It just gives me the opportunity to decide I'm not going to give my information to some place that is also very hand wavy in their agreement about what happens to the data that I give them.
Yeah.
Not happening.
All right. Before we wrap up here, I want to, Chuck, if you could give us a bit of a recap, albeit brief, whatever you choose, to what stood out at NAB this year. If anybody's not familiar, NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters show, it was their 100th anniversary, right? So that's huge, and it's kind of an interesting show. And I'd like to. I know everybody can obviously go to MacVoices.com and see all your great interviews that'll be coming up. You've already released a couple already. So, but would love to hear. How your impressions were coming back after, it's been 3 years since the last live show you went to.
Yeah, since the one they had it. No, it was last year was the first time back. The first.
Oh, and you went.
Yeah, and I went, but the show was greatly reduced.
Right.
This
because
year,
of COVID, right?
Yeah, this year it felt like it really was back. Still some folks missing that had been there before. One trend I saw was that folks that had a much larger booth before had much, much smaller booths. If they had good products, they were mobbed and they really needed a larger booth. So it'll be interesting to see how that trend develops. They did announce that the official attendance was 65,000, which is still substantially under what it was pre-pandemic.
It's still great.
Yeah, well, it's still great, and it absolutely was a worthwhile show for me to go to. Mm-hmm. I have to say, it felt like another one of those iteration years, with the exception of one product. And I'm sorry, I don't have the gentleman's card here, but it's a sound design software that is super affordable. In fact, I think there's a free version. If nothing else, you can try it free for a protracted period of time, and it's the easiest explanation I can give to you is that it lets you control a variety of aspects of the sound. For example, if I were to shoot a gun at the microphone, okay, you can take that sound and you can make it sound like it happened right beside your head, or it happened across the room, or it happened, in a warehouse down the street.
Whoa.
You can take that same file and apply those modifications to it. And that's just a simple example, but they had it so that you could do all kind of action filmy audio or realistic audio. And so it was a blast to watch and play with it. And I'm anxious to play with it myself. That was probably the coolest thing I saw. A lot of other great products that are just getting a little bit better. Jeff and I have had this conversation. AI editing is not quite there. Transcription editing is very much a thing now, but AI editing is not quite there yet. One company I talked to they take all your back catalog and organize it. Well, they've added AI to it. So now that if David had all of his shows cataloged in this software, he can search for particular comments or whatever, and it will look in there and it will give him not only the clip, but exactly the time code in the clip where that was said. And you can only imagine what that will do for news services and other professional operations.
Wow.
That they will be able to make much better use of their back catalog. One thing I have to say, since Kelly brought up Roy Kent, David, I'm going to post this in our
I'll put that link. I want everybody to read the Brett Goldstein that was interviewed.
Yeah, well, it was a feature session.
Right, they were both.
Yeah, the main stage was in the North Hall, and Brett did a session that was talking about the creative process. I'm not one to chase celebrities, it's like big deal, but I was really curious about this, both because of Brett as Roy Kent, and also because he was talking about the creative process. Happily, NAB released the video of it, and I just gave David a link that he'll put in the show notes where you can go. If you're interested, I would go sooner rather than later. I don't know how long they'll keep it live, but it was a very enjoyable hour, a fun hour. I don't think I looked at my watch once.
He seems like an absolute delight in everything I've ever seen him do. So I can't imagine this would be much different. So
yeah, it really was, and in fact, it made me want to go because he's one of the writers on Shrinking.
Yes,
Shrinking, as well as Ted Lasso, of course.
Yeah, and I had up until that presentation, I had no interest in Shrinking. It just didn't sound like a show I'd be at all interested in.
It really doesn't, and you could be very wrong. I'm only partway through it. I haven't made it all the way through yet, but yeah.
Well, he talks
about Ted Lasso didn't sound like a show we would be interested in either.
Oh, yeah. And I'm not going to spoil it.
Fell in love with it.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it. You guys could go and listen, but the way he described how Shrinking came about made me say, yeah, there's at least part of that I think I would enjoy. So, I wouldn't. It's well worth an hour of your time if you like Brett or the Roy Kent character at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beyond that, the one other thing I definitely want to plug though is Post-Production World. I kind of split my time between classes in Post-Production World and the show floor because there were just so many great things. I got to see Doc Rock for the first time ever in person. I got to meet him in person.
Wow.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. In spite of being on how many hundreds of podcasts with him.
Blowing my mind right now.
Yeah.
I thought we had all hung out together at some point.
Nope.
How did I not?
Wow.
Katamari Damacy you into the middle of one of those Macworld shenanigans?
I have no idea, or at least I didn't. At that point, I didn't know Doc. Frederick Van Johnson did a fantastic session that I got so much out of.
Lovely.
Alba Shapiro did a great session that I got a lot out of. I have ridiculous amount of notes that I need to go back through. New tools, new techniques. So if you are interested in video production, it's not an inexpensive. The Post-Production World track is not inexpensive, but it is. I think it's going to be absolutely worth it. NAB, yeah, it's a very. I mean, you can buy a ticket and walk into NAB, and it's a pretty affordable ticket. Vegas hotels are not affordable, so it's still going to be an expensive trip for you. But if you're into it, it's a great time. It really is. I would encourage anybody to experience it just once.
And you've been going for quite a few years.
Forever, yeah.
Give us some great content when you talk to people there. So it's definitely it's not a CES, but it's something that's a little different.
Yeah, well,
it's more specific.
It's more specific, but it's interesting to see how many business solutions are being portrayed as business solutions that previously would have just been media solutions, and now media is becoming integrated into those business products. And so it's what can I say? I definitely enjoy geeking out there too.
It's cool.
So
great. Oh, thanks for sharing with that. And before we wrap up, I want to make sure that I'm going to be talking about this until it happens, and that's MacStock. MacStock 7 is here. The tickets are now on sale, and the speaker list has been filling up. It's actually, I believe it's all filled up now. I'll be speaking. Jeff Gamet will be speaking. Brittany Smith is going to be speaking for the first time. I'm going to get to meet her in person for the first time. I'm so excited. And Jeff Gamet is also speaking and it's been a long time. So, and then of course this guy Chuck Joyner, he's speaking too. But
sounds sketchy.
No, really? Yeah. Have you decided your topic yet, Chuck? Have you announced that, or is that still in work?
I've not announced it because I know what I'm going to be talking about. I just haven't titled it yet.
Okay. So I'll be doing iCloud Demystified, and Jeff, and you, what were you going to speak about?
I'm talking about everything you need to know about high-res audio.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen to
I know, Kelly. I'm still working on peer pressuring you into arranging your flights so you can come join us.
Yeah. I'd even be your travel agent and get it done.
Well, there you go.
Oh, no.
Just to get you to be with us.
Let me see what I can do, because the thing I need to warn all of you about is that if this does happen, there will be many ferocious hugs happening, and around the knees, because I got to make the short joke. But it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So
No, and that's the great thing about MacStock is that we have so many friends, and
it's so much
there can be
fun.
New people you'll meet for the first time. You can network.
It's a really nice thing.
All the speakers are approachable as we are, and you can come ask any questions. So we're all very knowledgeable, and we enjoy sharing our knowledge to everybody. And I think this is going to be probably one of the biggest of them that it's been in a really long time. So, and I've, as everybody knows, I've spoken at all of them. I believe you have. Oh, you missed last year, Chuck, but you've spoken to most of them, and it's just an absolute fun time. So please go check it out. Join us. It's July 22nd, 23rd this year, and it's at in Woodstock, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. And I got links in the show notes for the speakers link, as well as where you can purchase tickets, and come check us out. Also, don't forget, we're also going to, if you wanted to come a little earlier, our friend Barry Folk has brought back the Mac Barbecue, which I can't wait. That's on July 20th. And he's going to have it back at his house, which is going to be so terribly exciting. And it hasn't been there since 2015 when I first met all of you for the first time. So Barry's bringing it back, and that's right.
Well, yeah,
and Barry's bringing it back, and it's going to be he's going to have all kinds of food, great barbecue, and he's going to have a whole thing of wine tasting. So it's going to be great on there. So that link's on the site as well. You would need to sign up with them ahead of time so Barry knows you're coming. All you have to do is mention that you know him, or if you know MacStock, and you're in, and he's going to have you join us. So. So come check us out, and come check out MacStock Conference at Expo. The website is MacStockConferenceatExpo.com, and we'll keep promoting it and keep talking about it. But come see us, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Hey, David.
All right.
Yes. Something we all make. I think we all make a mistake. We say we have a lot of friends. We get to see them all. This is not just about us.
Not just us. Right. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Well, no. But I mean, the point is, by the end of the weekend, everybody is friends. You know, exactly. you can't, whether it doesn't matter if you have a podcast or not. It doesn't matter if you have an article, a blog or not. Everybody becomes friends automatically because it's a nice boutique little conference that is no shoving and pushing in lines or anything. And that's the thing that I sometimes get concerned that we promoted so much because we are going to be so excited to see each other because we already know each other. We're also excited to see all the people there.
And new people that haven't been, or like I had lovely conversations with a number of people the last time I went and spoke. It wasn't even like, and I got to meet people that I was very excited to get to meet. So like for the first time, so it's a complete blast. Yeah.
I can tell you I've had the exact same experience in 2015 when I was welcomed. I wasn't a podcaster at that time, and look what happened. I turned into one. So.
Right? It's contagious.
It's very contagious.
Yeah.
So, all right. Thanks so much for you guys being here, and what a great show. And thanks for talking and letting everybody know about MacStock here. So let's go ahead and wrap up for this week. Okay. That's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, which is feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Twitter @InTouchWithIOS. Support the show by buying me a coffee at intouchwithios.com/coffee. We would really appreciate it. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/intouchwithios. We have 2 tiers available to support the show. We'd really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you're notified when we are live streaming, which is on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/intouchwithios. Thank you to Paul, and thank you to Guy, and a lot of other great people that were in the chat room tonight interacting with us with the show. You also can watch the live stream. I leave that up, as well as you can also listen to past shows. Also visit In Touch with iOS magazine on Flipboard, where many of the topics we discuss are flipped into that magazine. The link is in our show notes. You can subscribe to the show in your favorite podcatcher, including Pocket Casts, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, and many others. But better yet, go to our website at intouchwithios.com, where all the links to all the ways to listen to us are there. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Mastodon at DaveG65 at Mastodon.cloud. I'm also on Twitter, DaveG65. Kelly Goma, thank you so much for being here as always. Where can people find you?
In the backyard mowing, because I'm going to be there for the rest of my life now, apparently. Generally, you can find me on Mastodon. I am Verso at mastodon.social. You can find me sometimes here, sometimes heckling Chuck over on Mac Voices Live from time to time. And I'm not sure where else yet. Apparently, there's a whole thing. There's a petition or something about trying to get me to go to Illinois this summer. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, we'll be doing that post show.
Peer pressure.
Peer pressure. Thanks for being here, Kelly. Chuck Joyner, and thanks as always for your support and for being here. We really appreciate it. Where can people find you?
MacVoices.com is where you can find me releasing interviews from NAB. We're in the middle of that. Tomorrow, a new edition of TV Plus Talk goes up in the Mac Voices feed with Charlotte Henry.
Yeah.
And also, we're in the middle of doing the Road to MacStock, where we're talking to all the presenters that we can possibly get scheduled about what they will be presenting at MacStock. We also do Mac Voices Live Tuesday night with pretty much everybody here whenever they decide to show up. Kelly. Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are, on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. And as far as anything else, you can find me on all the socials as at Chuck Joyner or at Mac Voices. Thank you, David.
Great. Thank you, Chuck. And last but certainly not least, Jeff Gammon. Always a pleasure to have you here. Where can people find you?
Well, thanks once again for letting me come back. All right. So on the socials, Jay Gammett on Instagram and Mastodon. And then for shows, Chuck keeps letting me come back on Mac Voices Live on Tuesdays, so you can find me there. Then on Thursdays earlier in the day, I'm your interim host on The Big Show on the British Tech Network. Then Dave keeps letting me back here on Thursday nights. And then on Friday mornings, it's back to the British Tech Network to be your interim host for the Mac Show. And then Brian Chaffin and I record The Context Machine. Also, time is such a weird, nonlinear, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey thing right now that I honestly can't tell you if it was this week's episode or last week's episode of Charlotte Henry Show, The Edition, that I was on, and we talked about our favorite streaming shows.
It was last week's, Jeff.
It was last week's? Thank you,
yeah.
Chuck.
And it was very good, too.
It was a lot of fun.
She has a great show. All right. Thank you, Chuck. Thank Jeff, and thank all of you for listening. We really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this show, and we'll come back and talk to you again soon.